Yeah, we're live 9:16. I'm a little late. It's a weekend. I want to sleep in. Went to a homecoming last night with my wife, my son, and my other son was there involved, and so it was an awesome deal. It was good to get out. That's why I didn't do a live feed last night, but I'm here this morning and for incentive for you guys to get your projects done because, as we know, weekends are made for projects. A lot of times on the weekdays, yeah, sometimes you're working all day and you don't want to come home and work another 10 or 12 hours in the garage or in your shop or wherever you are, out in a field, whatever it takes to get stuff done. And I understand that, but weekends are really good times to get stuff done. You're not working, obviously, so you can go out and get at least something done. And a lot of times you can get big chunks of stuff done on the weekend because there's extra time. I know, I realize it's hard to, even to get sometimes to get like the time that you need to get stuff done, but get people involved, get your kids involved, get your wife involved, get your girlfriend, whoever, get them involved and have them help them bleed the brakes, do all that stuff, teach them things. That's a good time. um, I have the cams off of the cylinder head so I can mail those in. I did find shipping for the intake manifold that's going to Australia that's much more reasonably priced, which is awesome. Thank you guys at Brian Tooley Racing actually for helping me solve that problem. So I can get that shipped out, which is good. I found out information on I'm trying to work on doing a stroker Pontiac from a 400 block, and getting parts for that will, because of the supply chain, will be difficult. It'll take some time. So unfortunately, that's put on the back burner a little bit. And the same thing with the trophy 4-cylinder. I'm still working on. I want to get that done more than I want to get the 400 Pontiac. The 400 Pontiac thing can wait. I have the 350 that I can run, and then I can actually sell that motor for the young lady that owns that. But in the meantime, we can run that on the dyno, which would be cool. Be interesting to see what it does. Is a 69 350 with a 4-barrel on it and unknown other things. I can take a look at those parts on the cylinder heads and see what heads those are. I'm guessing it's probably if it's 69, it's more than likely getting into the might be lower compression stuff. So we'll see. Maybe it was originally a stock 2-barrel motor that they put a 4-barrel on. I just don't know anything about the history of it, but that's what the dyno will tell us what's going on. At least they'll tell us how much power it makes. It'll be interesting to see what it does versus the 400 that I had on there, so we can kind of get a little bit of information on displacement, which will be good. More information obviously is always better. If the guys from TorqueStorm are watching, I hope that they're going to send out a I just need the mounting brackets basically for the Pontiac setups, because I have the supercharger already, and then we can run a TorqueStorm on a couple of different ones. We could run. I don't have the 400 anymore because that's now in the motor or in the car and running, but I can run it on the 350. We can also run it on the trophy 4-cylinder, which will be very, very cool. Again, thanks to Lewis and Playing in Traffic for having me on there. And when I mentioned the trophy 4-cylinder, the guys got excited about that, which is cool to see. And that's why we do the other guys' stuff, because it's it's interesting, and it's strange, the people that relate to stuff. Like if somebody starts talking to Sprint turbos to me, I'm all in. But when you mention things like that, you mention a rotary or mention a Sprint 6-cylinder Pontiac or whatever it is, then these guys will come out of the woodwork, which is kind of a cool deal. But today we're talking about the wrong cam, which is the cam video that I put up yesterday. And it's the 200 horsepower camshaft. And you guys should see some. Maybe you have seen some of the comments that I get on this stuff. Even though I put in the video this is clickbait, and I argued with myself, which is always fun to do those kinds of that kind of editing and stuff. It's interesting. But the video, irrespective of the fact that, and it surprises me, and this is why I did the video, the fact that people are complaining that it's not a camshaft that gets 200 horsepower from their otherwise stock headed quadrajetted mild 350. They can't just stick a camshaft in there and have it magically transform into this 550 or whatever, 700 with boost kind of combination. That there isn't that kind of magic cam out there. But that's why I did the video, to show you that that's not a reality. That's not a thing. There's nobody out there that can take your junkyard 350 and put a camshaft in it, especially with no other changes, and have it magically be 200 horsepower stronger. That's just not going to happen. What I was showing you in the video, what I was demonstrating to people, was that kind of gain is possible. Heck, and we've shown this in other videos where I did the 175 horsepower cam swap in the naturally aspirated LS for the guys that were complaining that this was a supercharged combination. That's the only reason you got that kind of power. No, it's not. We could actually get 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 horsepower from a cam swap if we were to take a top fuel motor and run the camshaft that they run in there, and then run a stock camshaft in there. You would kill that much power. On a lesser extent, if you did the same thing to a Pro Stock motor or a Cup motor, going from something really, really teeny tiny to the right cam that they have in that kind of combination makes a huge difference. And that's what they did here. We didn't even have the best possible camshaft or the most powerful camshaft. We just had a camshaft in there. In this case, it was an Extreme Energy 294 hydraulic roller camshaft from Comp Cams, which is a healthy camshaft, certainly, to be sure, for a 383 Chevy. It was 242, 248, which is on the big side, and we had nearly 600 lift with the bigger ratio rockers. I'm surprised that nobody asked about that. Well, did you test that back to back to see if the added lift actually did anything? I didn't. I think we just had 1.6s, and so we put those on, which would have been a much better question than I can't believe you did this. I can't believe this is not 200 horsepower. But it goes to show you, one, how important the camshaft is. So if you have a stock camshaft in it, doesn't make very much power, even under boost. And we would have shown that NA, it also just kills the power. So if we put a good camshaft in, the camshaft obviously is a critical part of that. But the other thing that it showed, which I thought was interesting and helps illustrate the thing that we always talk about with camshafts, is that every cam is a turbo or a blower or a nitrous or any kind of cam. I didn't pick that camshaft because it's a centrifugal blower cam. I didn't pick that camshaft because it's a nitrous cam or a turbo cam. And it's also just one of a million camshafts. It's just a cam, and I knew looking at the specs, it's a healthy cam, and it's going to make pretty good power in this combination because we already had the things that I mentioned in the video. We had displacement, it was already 383 inches. We had decent compression. It was over 10-to-1, which is in the good zone. We had plenty of airflow. The airflow research 195 heads flowed very well. We had a good intake manifold. We could have gone with the single plane intake manifold, but even the RPM air gap worked very well. I was looking to have a good power curve when we put the centrifugal blower on there, which tends to have a rising curve. So we wanted to have a dual plane intake manifold, which has a better average power production than the single plane. And also, if you notice, we only rev this thing to 6,200 or something. And in that range, the RPM air gap is going to certainly have way more average power production than a single plane. And at that number, maybe even more peak power, because the single plane would want to keep going, which is something that I talked about. But that camshaft, despite, and if you look at in the Cams catalog, in fact, I'll read you the description for the 294. Hydraulic roller, street strip applications, 9.5-to-1 compression, intake headers, 3,000 stall gears, rough idle. So it's a retrofit hydraulic roller camshaft. It says not listed under blower. It's not listed under boost. It's not listed under any of those things. It's not listed specifically as a stroker cam. It's not any of those things. And yet it is a cam, and it works for all of the things that in the combination that I put it together. And it would work for a 372. It would work for a 350, although it would run at a much higher engine speed. It would work for a 400-inch motor. It would work with a turbo. It would work with lots of different things. So the camshaft is important, and also for the people that want a 200 horsepower camshaft, I'll let you in on a little secret. That's not out there. There's not one that you could put in your stock motor and make 200 horsepower with. There's no magic cam wizard out there that can make that happen. That's not a possibility, because to get that kind of power, you have to have the other things, which I demonstrated in the video. When you have all those things, like when I did the 175 horsepower NA cam swap, where we picked up 175 horsepower, it had everything also. It was a 408, so it had plenty of displacement. It had plenty of compression. It had really good cylinder heads. I think I had airflow research heads on that one. We had a fast intake manifold. So we had all the things that the motor wanted. And then we put a stock camshaft in it, an LM7 camshaft. And then we put a good camshaft in it, which was 240 at 50 or something similar to this, more exhaust duration. But we put a big camshaft in there and we picked up a ton of power. Not really surprising. But when you tell people, wow, we picked up 175 horsepower from this LS cam swap, people are like, oh, but I want that in my 5.3. Well, yeah, we do. And the way that you get that is you get rid of your 5.3 and you get a 6-liter and make it into a 408 and put really good heads on it and an intake manifold and all those things. Then you can make 625 or 630 horsepower or whatever that 408 made. I think it was right in that range. You can make that kind of power too. And if you were silly enough to try to run a stock camshaft and compared it to this bigger camshaft, you would get those gains, but only under those conditions. This is why we see such actual big power gains, relatively speaking, on an LS motor. When we put a camshaft in a 4.8 or 5.3 or a 6.0, and as we go up in displacement, by the way, we get better gains. If we're comparing it to a stock, low performance LM7 camshaft, we get bigger gains because the LS motor already has those things. Especially if you get one that has enough displacement, it's got reasonable compression. It's got plenty of head flow. It's got a good intake manifold. So when we put the camshaft in, basically on an LS motor, the camshaft is the thing that it needs. It's the one part that's missing. When we make these things even better, when we have more cylinder head, more displacement, more compression, more intake manifold, then we exaggerate this stuff. And that's exactly what happened with this 383. And we exaggerate it even more under boost, because what happens is if we put a camshaft in and we pick up 100 horsepower, if we do that same comparison under boost, the number is going to be even bigger, because the number that we get NA, as we know, whatever our starting point is NA and we add boost, it's just going to go up from there. So the gain is going to be multiplied when we have boost normally, and it works out pretty well. So that's why we saw the big gain, and that's why everybody was complaining. But I love it because it gives me stuff to talk about. And also the video is very popular. So it means also that there's a huge percentage of people that get it. They're like, oh yeah, that worked out really good. I see why that's possible. And I see why also that it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these other things. And that also, hopefully, I can't get that kind of gain on my stock 4.8, or I can't get that gain on my stock 350 or my 302 Ford or my Magnum Dodge or whatever. Anything else, it's just not going to work unless you have basically all of the ducks in a row and then you change that one thing. So let's see what you guys got going on. What's going on with your projects? It is possible to start with a 180 horsepower engine. It is. It is, and that's how you make yourself look like a hero. But the thing is, a lot of those kinds of motors, if I go get something from the wrecking yard and we get for instance, I think that I have a video up of the least powerful combinations that I've ever started with, and I got a lot of flack for that too. Oh, you've never tried this or this. No, I haven't. But that's why it said in the description, the least powerful combinations I have ever tested, not the least powerful combinations in existence or in the universe, or these are the ones that I've personally run. And on a small block Chevy, this is a 350, and we even rebuilt this one, so it actually had good forged pistons in it that were flat tops with valve reliefs. But we started off with Smog 882 heads that were stock. We started off with this 180 horsepower or whatever stock truck camshaft. We put a 2-barrel intake manifold on, a 2G Rochester, cast iron exhaust manifolds, the 2-inch exhaust that goes with those, and ran those. And we even optimized the tune. I don't know how optimized the tune would have been on a 2-barrel combination in a truck, but even optimizing the tune, the thing only made like 230 or so horsepower. So it was not very much. So that's pretty low. So that's the starting point. And the thing is, there were a lot of 2-barrel motors out there. In fact, there were probably way more 2-barrel base combinations than there were performance combinations. I would kind of like to see the numbers on that to see what they produced. But if you start out with a 2-barrel combination on a 350 Chevy, there's only one place to go, and that's up. Because as we saw, just putting a 4-barrel on there, pretty good gains. Putting a camshaft in there, pretty good gains. Putting a ported set of or reworked set of the 882 heads, pretty good gains. And all of a sudden, you're looking at picking up, 100 or 150 horsepower from doing some fairly basic modifications. But you started out really low because that thing was very, very restricted in every way. The induction system was restrictive. The heads were kind of restrictive. The exhaust manifolds were restrictive. The camshaft was certainly restrictive. When you have all of those things going against you and you start changing them, then you start seeing some pretty big gains. But when you're already starting from a performance application, then it's harder to get those gains. So let's see what guys got going on. Working on my Cobra as we speak. That's fantastic. The football game was good, except we lost, unfortunately. It's sad when you lose on your homecoming, but they did have a good fireworks display and stuff. Working for the Army right now. Thank you for your service. I'm going to make 300 horsepower more and a naturally aspirated cam change. That would be interesting. Again, as we talked about, that's certainly possible if you restrict it enough with a really small cam and then put a really big camshaft in it. Gonna work on my truck, get it more loud. Oh, for the bass competition. Okay, so it is all about that bass. Drill weekend, lots of projects. Snafu's riding bikes. Actually, I need to look outside. We're gonna take the dog for a hike today. I can look for snakes, maybe. I'm gonna grind a cam down to 2000s lift. That'll be interesting. People seriously think a stock engine with a cam saw will result in 200 horsepower. They do, and not only that, they're mad that that wasn't it. They're mad at me for not having it be magic. Gabe, we did. I did do the video to answer lots of questions. Tennessee's in the house. 4.6 2-valve. Add boost to it. They like that. For a 6.2 valve, 4.6 2-valve PI head swap, stage 3 cam headers, intake manifold, no tune. I don't know how you're going to make it run with no tune. It's not going to work very well because you're not going to have the right air fuel with the injectors that you would need for that, because you definitely have to have bigger injectors than stock. You don't know what the timing is going to be. The camshafts are going to be really soft down low. Also on a stage 3 camshaft, if you don't have different pistons in there, you might run into piston to valve clearance problems. You got a lot of stuff going on there. About to walk into the store for bolts for my disc brake conversion. That's good. Stripping an S10 frame. I like it. Doing a water pump. Building a 9-inch. See, you got lots of cool stuff going on. Are you saying a 5.3 is a waste of time? No, not at all. 5.3s are great. Heads cam intake should be considered a chain. How strong are the links? Which one breaks first? Which one should you replace? That's the thing, and it varies. In an LS, you already have pretty good cylinder heads. I mean, there are lots better ones, obviously, in the aftermarket. And if you're doing a turbo, that's why I almost never recommend changing the head on an LS, because you can get to such huge power levels with the cam and springs in a turbo that you don't need that. That's not one of the things that are mandatory. If you're going for 1,000,000 horsepower, then making more NA horsepower is definitely the way to go. Or if you're doing an NA combination, you can put a cam and springs in and it will make more NA power. But you also, to make lots of NA power, as we've shown in the NA power video, heads and cam help a lot. Genuine small blocks leave so much on the table. Yeah, they were not hugely powerful. The Gen 2 stuff, the LT1 stuff and the LT4 stuff actually was pretty good. Start off with a stock LS small block or big block turbocharged engine at a given boost. Adding a cam very well might come close to 200 horsepower. You can. That's certainly possible. Starting with two 350 Chevy engines, one is C20. 84 has headers and a 4-barrel quadjet and cast 4-barrel. What would you spend the first 500 on for performance? A camshaft would be the first thing that I would put in those. Just finished my supercharged small block Chevy with a 144. Those are fun. I really like those. Larry, advertised the heck out of your, I said heck, channel during drag weeks, during downtimes. I told them to check out your channel many times. A lot of people agreed that you were great. Thank you. That's very cool. Drag week stuff is awesome. It's amazing the level of power that they can get and still drive those things to each one of the tracks. It's it blows my mind. Putting custom intake back on my Ford Lima. Made 500 and 554 with economy dual plug head on initial chassis dyno. Should be close to 600. You have a turbo 2.3 liter that's making 500 horsepower and 554 foot-pounds. Do you have a falling boost curve or something on that? Try my hand at modifying my metering blocks for emulsion jets and power valve restrictors. Oh, cool. Good luck with that, man. When are you going to mess with Liv's overhead cam 6-cylinder? Actually, I was going to pick that up, and the people that were going to pick it up for me while I was gone in Ohio did not do it, and then she gave it to somebody else. So that may still happen. We'll have to see. Putting my engine together, 355 700R4 for full manual valve body, reverse valve body. 2000 stall Forge Eagle rotating assembly. Block is decked. 9 inches. Comp 264 cam, Brodex IK 180s. That's a good combination. Why are you on now? It's 2:30 in the morning. I know, I got a late start. Rebuilding an automatic trans for my first time ever. That's cool. I haven't ever done that. I've done shift kits on a Turbo 350, but I want to take apart this 4L60E, and I'm hoping that Oliver will help me do it because I think that he's done a couple. Got a great brisket sandwich with my wife. That's all. That's good time. I spent time with my wife this morning, and then we're gonna go for a take Milo, my golden retriever, take him out for a walk. First cam, any recommendations? Looking for the largest cam that will fit without doing pistons, unless you can afford them, then we'll do both. Gabe, what was your, I'll scroll back, Gabe, and see what your combination. Oh, 350s. Usually something in the 230 at 50 range. It's kind of the same as the LS. Take a look at I have videos up on a small block Chevy and where we put a 246 pure energy camshaft in it, which is an RV cam or truck cam, if you will. And then we also did a 268, I think. So look at those power curves and you can kind of get an idea of what's happening with the power of those camshafts. Trying to plan out a 5.3 LS that can replace the 454. Like to use the Escalade Supercharger, but those are big money. So trying to figure out a turbo setup. A turbo 5.3 will definitely make big block power and torque. Turbo 2.3 with an EFR 7163, actually a 2.5. Okay, so is it the Ranger truck engine? Ran out of fuel pressure, had enough injector to compensate, but fuel pressure at the top, 22 psi. So was it? Were you running out of fuel pump? Terry, this is live. It's the what do they say? The sun shell, I think, is what the people think it is. We did not have reverse, but we did have at least one forward gear. I didn't try the others. Now I have a Hellcat pump set up. pulse width modulated control on the MS3, holding pressure all the way up the top, picked up 800 RPM for what appears to be fixing this. Appears to be fixing the spray pattern. No piston to valve issues. Cam stage 3270 on a 96 block. The only issue I had was the IAC had to run a restrictor plate. Oh, okay, cool. First one I did, the smell was so bad I almost threw up. Oh, on the trans rebuild. I had a few boosted small block Chevys. This is exactly what I want to see. Yeah, the Vortec worked really well on that. We've run Vortecs on them. We've run the 177s, the 144s, the small little roots blowers. Those work really well. We've run 671s on them. We've run Prochargers. I don't know if I never run a Kenny Bell, I don't think, on a small block Chevy. I don't know that he ever did a kit for that. Make sure to press the like button. Oh, the poll for today. Before I get going here. And remember, I can't see your answers. Or can I? Okay. Was the 200 horsepower Camshaft video just clickbait? Let me know what you guys think. Let's see. Having a few boosts. Oh, here we go. I have never run a Whipple that I can remember on a small block. I know that they've done them on big blocks before. In fact, somebody, I think it was my buddy Mike over at Kenny Bell, said that they might have had one of the guys that worked there or one of his friends might have had a Whipple blower kit for the fuel injected big block Chevy. So for the Gen 6 big block Chevy, they had an offset mounted Whipple kit for it that he might have been able to get a hold of. I asked him to take a look into it, and it would be cool to just put one of those on a junkyard 454. Working on a project to convert an L33 into an experimental aircraft engine. That's kind of cool. I need to limit engine RPM to 3,500. What's the best way to get high torque at that low of an engine speed? The best way to get torque or displacement is number one. Compression, you're not going to see very much at all from cam timing, and runner length are all good things to get lots of torque. And then obviously positive pressure. One of them in particular was a 98 Vortec 5.7 with a Whipple. Cool. If only the 2.2 head cathedral ports. Yeah, it would be cool to have a billet head on there. My curiosity wants to see two radically different rocker ratios achieving the same valve lift. So you want to see, guys have asked about this. They want to see a camshaft like a low cam lift cam and then a higher cam lift cam, and then get the same valve lift with rocker ratio, because they want to see if rocker ratio does something. Because I think David Weiser did a video of rocker ratio improving the changing the ramp rate of the cam or something, that and getting the lift in earlier, or I don't know, something. I would be very surprised, again, in the range where we test stuff, that we saw a difference, but maybe it would be worth testing. As for cam timing, two times on the dyno, picked up 50 horsepower under the curve on my 2.3 Lima motor. I think it's one of the most underrated things not done in dialing in the camshaft. I do it first, then spark. So do you have the ability to adjust cam timing? Are you advancing or retarding the camshaft? Do you have an adjustable cam sprocket on or something? When vacuum drops to say 2 or 3 inches at wide open throttle, that means you have a restriction somewhere in the inlet, right? If your vacuum is at 2 or 3 inches at wide open throttle at 3,000 RPM, it should be more at 6,000 RPM, because your airflow demand increases with engine speed. Definitely going to take your advice, get some 24-pound injectors sitting in the garage with a mass airflow sensor to go with it. Yeah, if you have a meter that like the old Pro M stuff that's calibrated for that, that's the way to go. I don't know how much power you're going to make with that, but 24s are good for about 400 horsepower. So Terry, you think it's frictional losses? Have they used Super or Pro Charger that you would sell me? I don't think I do. I might have I have a reverse rotation Vortec, I think, that actually would be good for a modular forward application. Yeah, Larry, we talked about that. Making a big power change from a cam swap is simply a function of the test motor that you apply it to. Like I said, on a top fuel motor, it could be 5,000 horsepower if you want to do that kind of cam swap. And then anything less than that, the gain will be less than that of Pro stock. You could certainly get 1,000 horsepower from a camshaft, from a cam swap on a Pro stock motor. And then as you come down, a cup motor could be 300 or 400 or 500. And then as we come down into the more reality kind of engines like we have, it's easy to get that kind of power. Richard, does the GLH have a 2-piece intake manifold? Yes. Or 2.3, dry belt setup, adjustable sprocket. Okay. Any small block performance parts you need? Love that you could sell. Want to be able to break the tires loose, have the tires, have the tools. I do have some small block Chevy stuff if that's what you're looking for. What happened to the pneumatic valve Koenigsegg or Bugatti was working on? No cam. Yeah, that would be good. So that you can have. I thought Koenigsegg makes the free valve motor. You want to trade something for a Pro Charger for a 302? I don't have any Pro Chargers. I think Engine Masters has tested rocker ratio. Well, I've tested rocker ratio a lot, going from a 1.5 to a 1.6 and 1.7. I've done that test a lot, and sometimes it's worth power and sometimes it's not. It's not a universal thing. What they're wanting to test is that, let's say we want to have a 600 lift combination at the valve. And so you can get that with a 350 lobe lift and then the commensurate rocker ratio to get 600 lift. Or you could do it with a 400 lobe lift and then a smaller rocker ratio to get the same 600 lift. And that's kind of what they want to test. If you have high flowing 208 165 valves, 300 plus, small block Chevy, have a cam, 622 lift, would you really need more duration than 240? Yes, the head flow and the duration are not directly linked. So you could run that head with 300 CFM. You could run that head with a 210 degree duration at 50. And you're going to make power in a lower RPM range. Duration is going to tend to shift the power production higher in the rev range. So if you have 300 CFM and you want to make, let's say, 600 or more, you're going to run more duration and run it at a higher engine speed. And then you have to do the other things that make it work at a higher engine speed. So you need a single plane intake manifold, stack injection, a tunnel ram. You have to have a good, the rotating assembly is usually less of a problem, but the Valvetrain certainly has to be there. So you can run, like if you look at an LS3, a factory LS3 has 315 CFM, but it makes peak power at less than 6,000 RPM because it has a mild cam and a long runner intake manifold. You can stretch that out a lot with a lot more camshaft and shorter runner intakes. Any cam advice for a 5.7 Vortec marine engine, 36-pound injectors, meth injection? So are you needing meth injection because it has high compression? Usually those motors work pretty well at their intended application for marine applications. because they have compression and that sort of stuff to work. But the thing that I worry about with that is it a throttle body injected one, or is it carbureted? And if it's throttle body injected, if you put a camshaft in it, it's going to have to be tuned to be optimized. Yeah, dodgy. That's the thing. If you change the if you change the lobe lift, you're going to change the ramp rate. Ask about vacuum increasing because I want to put the smallest power valve I can, but I don't want it to close when I get to high RPM and lean out the mixture. Your power valve, I don't think you could generate enough. Do you have enough? Do you have that much of a restriction where you'd be worried about the power valve closing? There shouldn't be that much. You shouldn't. You shouldn't ever go up to 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 inches of vacuum at wide open throttle. If you do, you have another issue going on. Usual suspects, I have the smallest pulley from Whipple 2, which is supposed to make 11 pounds on a stock application. General civility, I don't know what your issue is. Just the marine intake with a throttle body and multi-port fuel injection. Yeah, I know, but the thing is, if on those injected deals, if you change the camshaft dramatically, obviously all of the timing and fuel events are all designed around that stock camshaft, whatever that marine camshaft is. And if you change the camshaft, which is going to change things dramatically, you have to go in and supply different amounts of fuel and possibly different amounts of timing. Just purchased a Proform 750 carburetor, plan on installing it in a 305 small block, planning to install a small turbo, maybe 8 PSI. My question is, what jets should I start with? I don't know. I don't know that there's a way to know that. We put it on and see what it's going to do. We have a CSU blow-through carburetor. I don't know how you're running that carburetor. Is the Proform carburetor an actual blow-through carburetor, or are you sealing it inside of an enclosure? On an aggressive boosted car, what E85 percentage do you feel you can get down before you have to pull a tune out of it? I always heard 60%. The power in the I've seen people that said that they have tested this, and I have not. I can tell you that when I go get E85 from the local gas station, I never even check it. We just run it. I'm told that down in the 50 to 60% that the gain is still very close to the same as it is on E85. I don't know. Oh, you've been 35 pounds of boost down to 70% with no less spark or boost. I think as you go up in boost, I would be a little bit more worried about the percentage. Where we're running stuff, it's not going to hurt itself. As you go up and you're making a lot more boost pressure, you're going to have to worry about that. Are you testing the E85 percentage? I plan to make it blow through with a hanger 18 right up. Yeah, I've never checked it. What we're doing on the engine dyno, I'm testing things. We're running E85, we're running a turbo thing. I'm almost never doing like all of it. I know lots of guys their ego is attached to whatever their buildup is, and it's got to be, oh, you got to run the turbo all the way out. You got to pull the wastegate, or cap the wastegate or whatever, put the boost to the top of the wastegate. Their whole existence is linked to that part of it. And the thing that I'm trying to provide, obviously, is data. So when we're running testing and I'm running 3 or 4 different camshafts through a turbo combination, the fact that the E85 that I got from the local gas station is E85 or E80 or E50 or E60 really is irrelevant. Looking for cam advice on a 98 350. So that's going to be a throttle body injected one, right? That's the Spider Vortec one, right? I don't know how they are guys retuning those. I've never seen one of those tuned. Usual suspects, just looking for. So will we ever see a channel build here? You've seen endless builds on the dyno. Been playing with exhaust cam timing on an 800 horsepower 4G64 63 head. I rather like having the exhaust cam advance for a smooth idle and great drivability. Surprising, I've not gained any mile per hour by retarding it. That's why you got to test stuff. That's why I'm a big fan of actually trying things. When we were going through advancing, retarding the camshafts on all the B series stuff that we did, because I tested, I don't know, 30 camshafts or so on B series combinations. And we always went through the same procedure. We would run it straight up, and then we would start advancing one or retarding one, and then do the other, and then start looking at combinations. And it's a lot of testing to find out where it's optimized. Usual suspects. So you want cam specs, lift duration, and LSA for a Whipple Supercharged 98-350. Do I have that right? My question still is, if I give you the camshaft, can you tune that? I'm assuming if you have a Whipple Supercharged deal that you can tune it, and if you can, and it's a Vortec headed motor, so the cam's going to be small unless you've done other things to that cylinder head to allow you to put spring in it that would allow you to have retainer to seal clearance. Then you could put camshafts in it that are more than 500 lift, or actually more than 450 or 460 lift. Otherwise, there's lots of small Vortec cams that will work and add power compared to your stock camshaft. Something in the 210 to 220 range, or 220 to 230. When you go up in those camshafts, they tend to require the valve spring change or the head machining. Ken, the test was actually just the two cams. So the 200 horsepower change came from only changing the head. I mean, only changing the camshaft. Just like if we changed the camshaft on an LS. The ramjet cam was popular in the day, but the intake is purportedly a hot mess due to the spider lines, for what it's worth. Did you see the Gale Banks assessment of the TRX Ram EAL? I don't know what that is, but I didn't see it. See, this video is about a cam swap on a boosted small by Chevy. I thought that's what you wanted to talk about, but I guess not. Are you? Do you need a hug? Are you upset about something? I just went over the whole thing on your camshaft. Boosted Gringo, if I run into knock limiting cylinder pressure, but it's showing nothing even at close to 40 psi and 15 degrees. That's a lot of boost. Elgin makes 210, 215. That may work on a budget, but you want to double check. That's right in the range of a camshaft that I would put in a that I would use with a Vortec head. But if I was going to do it, because the Vortec head is really, really good from a production head standpoint, they're actually very good. If I was going to use one, though, I think I would certainly take it off or even cut it with it on the motor and make it so that I could put a reasonable amount of lift in the camshaft. No, a build for something outside of the dyno. You mean like the Omni? That's a dedicated build. That's even a car build. Snafu, most of the stuff I do is not a dedicated build for something. I don't build things to go. Well, I have built stuff to go to Bonneville. So I've built several of those motors. Most of those have been import stuff and not domestic stuff. The B series Honda, I did a Suzuki Kazashi, and then a Volkswagen. Those were dedicated things. But the reality is that the things that I do on the dyno are the same as those things are. I mean, what I learned from the dyno, runner length, boost pressure, NA power, charge cooling, octane, all of those things are just applied to that. It's not a 200 horsepower cam swap when you introduce a Procharger into the scenario. Well, two things are wrong with that. Both of parts of it are inaccurate. One, it's not a Procharger, it's a Vortec, so it's a different manufacturer supercharger. The other thing is the supercharger was used both on the stock camshaft and on the aftermarket camshaft. So it was present in both cases. So yes, it is a 200 horsepower cam swap. I want to boost a 305 throttle body injected motor. How much with ring gap till the block splits? I don't think you have to worry about the block. The block is not the thing that's going to break. If you have a stock bottom end in almost any engine family, the thing that's going to break is a rod or a piston normally. What cam size is needed for horsepower peak around 8,000 RPM in a 5.3? You need more than a camshaft for that. You need a lot more than just a camshaft for that. You don't have enough. You really don't have enough piston to valve clearance in a stock 5.3. You also don't have enough head flow in a 5.3. You don't have enough. You don't have the right intake. There's a lot of things that you need, and the Valvetrain is going to be critical for 8,000 RPM. Can I change when the trans shifts on an 84 C10? What is it? Is it turbo 350? We used to do it with the kickdown cable. We would adjust the kickdown cable, but there might be other ways to do it. I'm not a transmission expert. Dodgy Brothers, did you see the video that I put up yesterday? That's the one that I'm talking about. You don't change the blower efficiency necessarily with cam timing. The only thing that you're changing is you're changing the boost level and the flow rate. So I don't know. Maybe you could argue that you do, but what you're changing actually is that when you run a blower with a stock camshaft, you're going to have high boost and not nearly as much power. Then when you make the NA combination more powerful, which we do when we put a good camshaft in it, now if you're spinning the blower at the same speed, what happens is you're going to flow more air, you're going to have a lower boost pressure, and you're going to have more power. That's what happens when you do it. But the blower is present with both a stock cam and an aftermarket cam. That's a cam test. And we didn't change the speed of the blower, so everything remained the same. The only variable that we changed was the camshaft. Someone should buy a split 302 block. Why would you want a split 302 block? You could go do that yourself. Does a turbo need a built motor? No, you can run. We run boost on stock stuff all the time. I have a bottom end LQ9 and want to turbo it. Might upgrade the cam and leave the head since the 317s are good for boost. Every head is good for boost. You need to take a look at the 6-liter stuff. We did 1,500 horsepower with that was an LQ. That was an LY6, but it was a Gen 4 stock bottom end, stock block, stock crank, stock rod, stock pistons. It had good heads, cam, and intake manifold on it. We put 2 S475s on it to see how much power the stock bottom end would take, but it will take a lot. So if you add boost to the thing that you have, put a mild camshaft in it, and you can make whatever kind of power you want. The trioed. Who did a shameless plug? The Magic Stick cam. What's the duration on the Magic Stick cam? What will it fit stock piston to valve clearance? And no camshaft that fits stock piston to valve clearance will make peak power at 8,000 RPM on a 5.3. It's like people aren't even listening. Hopefully tomorrow, pulling the 2.2 T1 out of a LeBaron, putting it into a K-car, gonna swap the T2 intake, add some cold start injectors, more fuel. I didn't, and that's one thing I don't remember. I'm gonna have to ask Ben and Brian if we looked at that when we took the motor apart. I'm gonna have to ask if we measured the stock ring gap. I can't remember now if we did. So I want to see what the stock ring gap was. I'm going to put that on my list. Call Ben. Stock ring gap. More gap is always a good idea if you plan to turn the boost up. It gives you a safety margin. If you thought about a 4-valve swap on the Omni, it is possible, but it would be better off. You'd be better off just doing the people do the SRT4 4-valve head on there. It'd be better just to put the whole SRT4 motor in there, but that's not what I want from this Omni. Maybe the Magic Stick has VTEC. That would be good. Maybe it has the perfect amount of Valvetrain instability and then just allows you to to be unstable and have more lift and duration. So this is interesting. Was a 200 horsepower cam swap video just clickbait? 45% saying yes and 55% saying no. That's interesting. How hard to remove the input shaft from a TKK? T5s are easy. I don't know. I've never taken one apart. A TKX. I have a Thunder Racing T-Rex on the shelf. 242, 248. A 242, 248 cam will not fit in a 5.3. It won't even be close. 7.3 Godzilla. Nope, I don't have one of those. 239, 242, 111 LSA. I'd be real surprised if that fits. You give information that wasn't available to us normal people unless you're going to school. Even in school, really, they don't do this kind of testing. And thanks for the comment. I used to do that back in the day. Actually, they would do cams designed to be unstable. What they would do, NASCAR used to do that on their qualifying cams, is they would loft them to get more lift. It was unstable, and I don't think the Valvetrain would last. That's when they would allow them to use qualifying motors and then race motors, and the qualifying motors were more unstable than the race motors were. Dean, which percentages were sad? I've never tried Rhodes lifters. I would like to. I think that would be interesting. I'd want to see if we get. I would like for the bigger cams, because that's one thing that's always a trade-off, is that when you put more camshaft in it, you sacrifice low-speed power, and that's part of the trade-off. It would be nice to be able to get that back, kind of a Rhodes lifter mini VTEC kind of thing, more low-speed power, or even just better idle would be good. The +3 is advanced. We do need more Atlas content. I agree. By unstable, are you talking about a cam that deliberately has some kind of valve flow? Well, yeah, it can have an unstable cam has all kinds of potential problems. It can have loft off the top of the lobe. It can have it can have that so bad that it's not even following the closing ramp. It can have bounce after it closes or as it's coming down and hits the bottom and is unstable and bounces. It can be unstable as it first reaches the ramp. If the ramp is really aggressive, it can kind of hit the ramp and be unstable on the opening side. There's all kinds of instability, and then it can also have things that are like harmonic frequencies too that cause instability and cause the thing not to like follow the ramp rate because of cycling frequencies. So you tried Rhodes lifters in a Holden and they rattled and were horrible. I've never had anybody tell me that they're like the absolute cat's meow. I'm gonna talk to Jeff Smith. Might know. I'm sure he's tested Rhodes lifters on like old school small block Chevy stuff. Has anyone ever tried a neon single overhead cam head on a 2.2? Does that head flow better than a regular 2.2 head? Dean, so you adjusted the lash on the stock LT1, the 70 version, it's the high compression one. We downgraded the cam to 294 degrees at lash. So you didn't change the cam, you just changed the lash, right? Because the Duntov cam responded dramatically to less lash. 30 thousandths lift on the Duntov cam didn't make good power. Tight lashing the cam made a big difference. But it did lose power down low, tight lashing the cam. Exactly, Dean, right? Oh, no, you got a whole new cam. Okay, so yeah, if you change the cam, that's a good upgrade. Nothing quite like being unstable. It is. And this is something that's happening in the industry that people don't realize is that there are lots of cams out there that are being sold that are not stable. Which is why, and what happens is that manifests itself sometimes in longevity. So you can create lifter problems and you can the instability can cause all kinds of problems. Lifter is wear is and lifter life can dramatically be reduced. Also the camshaft life and the valve tip and the rocker and all that stuff is bad if you have unstable cam profiles. Oh, the neon is a 16 valve. Okay, I thought we were talking about another 8 valve conversion. I'm like, why would you do that? So we're going to go ahead and close out our poll at 59% saying no and 41% saying yes on on the Clickbait. That's kind of cool. And then with the camshafts, not only do you have instability problems, you obviously have people creating cam profiles that are more or less powerful. And then a lot of times when they try to make powerful cams, inherently that design is unstable. And so you might have power, but you have lots of wear rate and things don't last as long. So that's not a good trade-off. So even if you pick up 5 horsepower or 10 or whatever the number is, the fact that your thing only lasts 5,000 miles is not a good trade-off. So I'd much rather have, and then if you can get, the ideal combination obviously is to have the power and the stability. So I would rather have the stability and less power than instability and more power. The ideal thing is to have both, and that takes a lot of work. Why don't people run springs on lifters? That sort of rev kit was done long ago, but I don't think it actually cures the problem. Because the problem with Valvetrain instability that I'm talking about is not related to spring rate. And even having the spring on the lifter doesn't cure it. In fact, a lot of times spring rate exaggerates the problem, because trying to force it into position is not the answer. Also, the springs, even when you change the rate, have different frequencies also. So those are cycling as well. It's really chaotic. The stock one before had huge duration. The LT1 cam, Dean, in 70 was much smaller than the 3030 Duntov cam that was used on the DZ302 and the 365 horse 327. The LT1 cam was actually a good bit smaller than that, which that and the combination having more displacement, which is why it didn't rev nearly as much, and people complained about it, although it had 50 more foot-pounds of torque and average torque production than the other motors did. But it didn't rev nearly as well because it was milder. My vacuum concern may be unwarranted. I think a scale my vacuum gauge is off a little bit. I'd be surprised if you have that much. Normally at wide open throttle, we'll see 1 inch of vacuum, maybe 1.5, depending on what it is that we're testing. But it's usually not very much. And we see more. We see nothing usually at low speed. And then where we see the biggest vacuum number is going to be at the highest RPM. The issue I'm trying to solve is that my engine gets pretty rich once the power valve opens at lower speeds and lower RPMs. Once the RPM pick up, then I would try to change the power valve on it. What is the power valve that you have in there now? One more minute. It's funny how aggro people get. It's not that kind of test. Yeah, it is. So Kurt, yours will be the last one. I ran Rhodes lifters on my first 318 build with a CompuCam 305. That's pretty good size. Hydraulic 202 ported X heads. They did what they said they would. They worked excellent. Okay, so it did improve the idle quality and stuff. That's great. AJ, so you ran a DZ clone and a 260 cam. That's one step up. I think that the DZ was 254, if I remember right. Everybody's normal. They get to know them. Okay, guys, it's time for me to go. I hope you guys have a good morning. Get your projects done. Get out there. Get that stuff done. I'm going to go work on some more clickbait video titles. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tonight.